Welcome to The Deep Dive, where we slice through the noise and pull out the most compelling insights from the stories that matter. Today, we're embarking on a fascinating journey into a really significant upcoming economic shift for Bulgaria. For many of you, it's one of Europe's most affordable countries, right? A place of stunning natural beauty and a nation steeped in history. But this isn't just a travelogue. We're going to unpack what a monumental currency change truly means for its people, for the real estate market that so many of you are keenly interested in, and for the broader European landscape.
That's right. This isn't just another incremental policy change. This is a landmark moment, a genuinely huge step for Bulgaria. For many years now, the country has maintained a currency board arrangement, pegging its national currency, the lev, directly to the euro. It's been a fixed exchange rate, almost like a shadow adoption, providing a certain level of stability. But what we're talking about now, the full adoption of the euro, is something else entirely. It's not merely a currency link that can be adjusted. It's a complete, irrevocable integration into the Eurozone's monetary system. It makes Bulgaria a full voting member of that powerful economic club. Think of it as moving from, say, an engagement to a full-fledged marriage.
Okay, so our mission today is to truly unpack the nuances of this complex and incredibly impactful transformation. We want to dive deep into what this means for you, our listener, whether you're an ordinary Bulgarian citizen grappling with daily finances, maybe a potential investor eyeing property opportunities, or just someone keenly interested in the evolving tapestry of the European Union. We aim to get to the heart of a change that will touch every facet of life in Bulgaria, often in ways that aren't immediately obvious.
Precisely. It's a huge moment because, look, currency adoption is rarely just about cold economics or the exchange rate on a board. It reverberates profoundly through society, culture, and geopolitics. The implications are multifaceted, touching everything from the smallest daily household budgets to the country's strategic position on the European continent and its relationships with its neighbors and the wider world. It really demands a detailed examination to truly grasp its significance and to understand both the promises and, well, the perils that come with such a deep integration, the euro in everyday Bulgarian life.
Navigating the transition, right, so let's get granular here. If I'm an average Bulgarian, earning in lev, paying bills in lev, what's the immediate day-to-day impact going to be when the euro officially lands? Will people wake up feeling richer or perhaps poorer? What's the direct, tangible effect on their wallets?
Yeah, that's the core question in everyone's mind, and it's entirely understandable that many Bulgarians are approaching this transition with a mix of anticipation and concern. The most immediate and tangible financial shift is the physical disappearance of the lev itself. While it's already fixed at that familiar rate of approximately 1.9558 lev to the euro, a rate that has been the backbone of Bulgaria's monetary stability for decades, really full adoption means the physical currency, the banknotes and coins you hold in your hand, will cease to be legal tender. All wages, all pensions, all existing savings, even outstanding loans like mortgages, will be directly and automatically converted at this exact fixed rate.
So, from a purely numerical standpoint, your 100 lev suddenly becomes just over 51 euros. That sounds straightforward enough, but what about the psychological side of it? Surely it's more than just a simple conversion on paper.
You've hit on a critical point there. From a purely mathematical perspective, there's no change in value, just a change in denomination. Your purchasing power theoretically remains the same. However, the psychological implication is, as you said, huge. People are deeply accustomed to their national currency, its denominations, its historical context, its established purchasing power. Suddenly, you're operating in a completely new numerical framework for everything, from the cost of a small coffee to your monthly rent. This is why most countries implementing the euro have a dual pricing period.
Ah, right, where you see both prices.
Exactly. Both currencies are displayed side by side for a set time, typically several months before and after the official changeover date. This helps consumers recalibrate their mental calculus. Even with this, there's a period of reorientation where people are constantly doing mental conversions, often simplifying or rounding in their heads, and that can feel disorienting and even a little unsettling, regardless of the fixed rate. I mean, studies from Ireland's euro adoption, for instance, showed a significant increase in consumer errors in budgeting for months post-transition.
Really? Even among financially savvy people?
Yes, even among financially savvy individuals. It's like suddenly having to calculate every price in a foreign currency permanently for every single purchase. It's a very practical shift, but one with significant cognitive and emotional weight, impacting how people perceive value and manage their daily budgets.
And that leads directly to one of the major public concerns: the specter of inflation and prices being rounded up. We've all heard those illustrative examples, like an item costing 1 lev, potentially morphing into €1, which would, in effect, double the price for the consumer. Here's where it gets really interesting, because that fear isn't entirely unfounded, right? Even with a fixed conversion rate.
You're absolutely right to highlight that fear because it's rooted in real historical precedent. This phenomenon has been widely observed in other countries that adopted the euro, particularly in the initial transition period. It's often called euro inflation or the rounding up effect. Even with a fixed and transparent conversion rate, retailers and service providers have historically used the changeover as an opportunity to subtly, or sometimes not so subtly, raise prices.
Yeah.
The logic is simple. If something costs, say, 0.90 lev, which converts to approximately 0.46 euro, a retailer might round it up to 0.50 euro. Or an item that was 1.50 lev, about 0.77 euro, might become 0.80 or even 0.90 euro. These small increments, say, from 0.46 euro to 0.50 euro, might seem insignificant on a single item. But when you apply that across hundreds of products and services, across every shop and service provider, the cumulative effect can be substantial on a household budget.
So it's not explicitly illegal, but it's more of a psychological maneuver then? How do countries try to counter this?
Exactly. It capitalizes on consumer unfamiliarity with the new pricing scale and the natural human tendency to round up for simplicity, especially when dealing with a new currency. Imagine a small convenience store, for instance, dealing with hundreds of small transactions a day. Rounding a few cents here and there can add up to a significant gain for them, while for the consumer it's a slow, almost imperceptible erosion of purchasing power. The real insight here isn't just that it happens, it's how resistant it is to explicit government controls. In Croatia, for example, despite strict government anti-rounding laws and dual pricing requirements, anecdotal evidence and consumer surveys still pointed to noticeable price creep.
Especially on everyday items.
Yes, especially on everyday items and smaller services like coffee or haircuts. Governments often implement price freezes or strict monitoring, but the sheer volume of transactions and the psychological element make it a tricky beast to truly tame. This psychological effect, as it's been called, relies on the consumer's temporary disorientation, making it harder to spot these micro increases until their overall budget starts to feel the pinch. And for a country like Bulgaria with its economic context, this subtle upward drift in prices poses a very real challenge.
And that subtle price increase can disproportionately affect lower-income individuals and families. Bulgaria, despite its economic growth and EU membership, still stands out as one of the lowest-income countries in the Union. So a general rise in prices, even if incremental, would hit them particularly hard, wouldn't it?
Precisely. For a country where a larger proportion of the population lives on tighter budgets, even small increases in the cost of essentials like food, utilities, or public transportation can have a magnified impact on their quality of life. For lower-income households, a significantly larger percentage of their income is spent on these necessities compared to higher-income households.
Which leaves less room to absorb increases.
Exactly. This means there's less disposable income, less ability to save for emergencies or future investments, and a greater vulnerability to any price shocks. If an item that was previously 1 lev, around 0.51 euro, becomes €1, that's almost a doubling of price for that specific item. While this extreme example might not be widespread for every single item, the general upward drift we've seen elsewhere creates significant challenges. This directly exacerbates existing income inequalities within Bulgaria, making it harder for these segments of the population to maintain their standard of living, let alone improve it. It truly creates a cost of living squeeze from the bottom up.
And that brings us to the crucial point. If prices start to rise but salaries don't keep pace, that creates a real and immediate problem. You can't just hope that wages will magically adjust to the new reality. This pressure on daily budgets if wages don't keep up, well, it inevitably spills over into the biggest asset most people own, their home. Because if everyday life gets tougher, what happens to the bedrock of their financial security, their property?
Indeed. While euro adoption often signals greater macroeconomic stability and might boost investor confidence, it doesn't automatically or instantly resolve deep-seated structural issues like income disparity or guarantee immediate wage growth. The hope, of course, is that greater foreign investment and deeper economic integration will, over time, lead to more productive industries, higher-paying jobs, and ultimately wage increases that keep pace with or even outstrip price increases. But the immediate risk, particularly in the initial years, is a painful cost of living squeeze.
Can you maybe give us some example of how this plays out in real life?
Sure. Imagine a Bulgarian family where their combined income allows them to comfortably cover their rent, groceries, and perhaps a small leisure activity, or save a little for their children's education. If, post-Euro adoption, their rent or groceries subtly increase by, say, 10–15% over a short period, but their salaries remain stagnant, their real purchasing power plummets.
They just have less money at the end of the month.
Exactly. They might have to cut back on essentials, forego savings, or even take on additional debt. This is a challenge faced by citizens in other countries post-Euro adoption, where the initial period saw a noticeable decline in perceived quality of life for many due to this mismatch between prices and wages. It creates genuine hardship and resentment, potentially leading to social friction and a sense that the euro benefits only a select few. This economic shift, inevitably, doesn't just stay within the realm of household budgets. It spills over into significant asset classes, particularly real estate, which is where many people hold their wealth or aspire to, and which represents a fundamental part of a family's security and future. 2. The real estate ripple effect: investment, affordability, and the landscape.
So, from the daily struggle of the shopping cart, let's turn to perhaps the single most impactful long-term asset class, real estate. Bulgaria's property market has always been a fascinating paradox. On one hand, it's an EU member with stunning nature and a rich culture. On the other, it has incredibly low property prices, especially in rural areas. You could genuinely find a livable rural house for under 20,000 kortons, which is almost unthinkable in most of Europe. But with the euro coming, the landscape for property could change rapidly. Is this what makes Bulgaria such an attractive investment destination right now?
Absolutely. This is where history offers us some strong indicators, providing a glimpse into Bulgaria's potential future. When other countries, particularly those in Central and Eastern Europe like Slovakia or the Baltic states, Latvia, Lithuania, and Estonia joined the euro, they experienced rapid, often dramatic, property price increases. The drivers behind this are quite clear and powerfully demonstrate the euro's magnetic pull. Foreign investors who were previously hesitant due to currency risk and exchange rate fluctuations suddenly perceive significantly less risk and greater financial stability.
Less currency risk, meaning they don't have to worry about the local currency devaluing against their own, like the euro or the pound or dollar.
Exactly. Investing in a property in a non-Eurozone country meant constantly worrying about the lev's value against their own currency, or against the euro they might be earning in. That added a layer of uncertainty and potential loss that deterred many. With full euro adoption, that currency risk essentially vanishes. Their investment is now in euros, eliminating the need for complex hedging strategies or the constant monitoring of exchange rates. This immediately makes previously overlooked properties, rural homes, suburban plots, even more remote holiday properties suddenly far more appealing and viable as long-term investments. What's fascinating here is how the perception of risk shifts with currency stability. It's not just about removing the transactional costs or administrative burden of currency exchange.
It's deeper than that.
It is. It's about a fundamental psychological reevaluation of the market's safety, liquidity, and long-term potential. This newfound stability lowers the entry barrier for a much wider pool of international capital, from individual lifestyle buyers to larger institutional investors.
And Bulgaria is already very much on the radar for foreign buyers. We're talking about people from the UK, Germany, the Netherlands, and increasingly even non-EU countries like Israel, Turkey, Canada. It's a diverse group. Given this existing interest, how significant do you think the actual impact of euro adoption will be? Will it just be a slight nudge, or could it genuinely supercharge interest in a dramatic way, maybe even attracting a new demographic of buyers?
Oh, I think it absolutely will be a game changer, pushing it beyond a mere nudge. Bulgarian property is, without a doubt, likely significantly undervalued relative to its climate, its natural beauty, its cultural richness, and especially its status as a full member of the European Union. Why has it been undervalued? Historically, it's partly due to lingering perceptions from its communist past, perhaps a less developed marketing presence compared to, say, Greece or Croatia, and precisely that perceived currency risk we just discussed. Euro adoption sends a very clear, unequivocal message to the global investment community. This market is mature, it's safe, it's financially stable, and it's ready to rise. This isn't just about pure speculation. It's about signaling a commitment to broader European economic norms and stability, enhancing legal certainty, and making cross-border transactions much smoother.
So it's kind of like a stamp of approval, a signal of stability.
Precisely. A very powerful one. The likely immediate impact will be a surge in inquiries and transactions as savvy investors and lifestyle buyers look to get in before the full effects are priced in. In the medium term, we could see significant appreciation across different property segments. Urban properties in cities like Sofia and Plovdiv, which are already experiencing growth due to internal migration and foreign investment in tech and services, might accelerate their price increases.
And the coast.
Coastal areas like Burgas and Varna, popular with tourist and holiday home buyers, will likely see renewed interest from those seeking affordable vacation properties within the Eurozone. And those charming, previously overlooked rural properties. They can become prime targets for investors looking for significant capital appreciation, remote workers seeking an affordable high quality of life, or for those simply seeking a peaceful, affordable second home within the Eurozone. We've seen this play out time and again. The perceived stability and integration attract capital that was previously waiting on the sidelines, leading to rapid upward pressure on prices. It's truly a moment where Bulgaria's hidden gem status could become much more widely recognized and capitalized upon.
But there's a critical counterpoint to the surge in foreign interest and rising prices, and it's something we've seen in other popular investment destinations. It brings to mind those picturesque Italian villages that suddenly become overwhelmed by foreign buyers. Is there a risk that Bulgaria's charming rural areas, where families have lived for generations, could become like expensive ghost towns, only buzzing during holiday periods? The potential for native Bulgarians, especially young couples trying to start families or rural families who have lived in these areas for generations, to be priced out of their own local markets is a real concern. This is the flip side of the investment coin, isn't it?
This is truly the dilemma, and it's perhaps the most sensitive social implication of successful euro adoption. It's a tough balance to strike. On one hand, you want the benefits of increased investment, the economic growth, the infrastructure improvements, the job creation that comes with a vibrant property market. But you absolutely don't want to see traditional Bulgarian villages turn into ghost towns, populated primarily by empty holiday homes for foreign owners, or worse, see entire generations of young Bulgarians unable to afford to buy a home in their own country, in their own communities. If property prices double or even significantly increase, but local wages don't experience a commensurate rise, and as we discussed earlier, there's no guarantee of immediate wage growth at the same pace as property values, then you have a real societal problem.
What are the social implications of that kind of displacement? It's not just financial.
No, not at all. Consider the wider social fabric. Rising property taxes, increased cost of living due to higher demand for local services, and the profound emotional impact of feeling disconnected from the opportunities and sense of belonging in your own homeland. It could lead to significant social displacement, where people are forced to move away from their communities, their families, and their cultural roots because they simply cannot afford to live there anymore. This has happened in parts of coastal Spain or even some picturesque French villages where local amenities designed for year-round residents start to disappear, replaced by seasonal services catering to tourists or holiday homeowners. This tension between encouraging economic growth and ensuring social equity and opportunity for the local population is a central challenge for Bulgarian policymakers, and it ties directly into broader European goals and expectations for new Eurozone members. The EU often talks about cohesion and shared prosperity, and this potential affordability crisis for locals can run directly counter to those foundational ideals, potentially creating resentment to the very integration intended to bring prosperity. 3. Bulgaria's role in the broader European landscape. Strategic and economic significance.
Okay, zooming out now, as we often like to do, what does Bulgaria adopting the euro truly mean for Europe as a whole? Is it just another country joining the club, or is there a deeper significance politically and economically?
Well, it's definitely more than just another country joining the club. It holds immense symbolic and strategic importance for the entire European project. Politically, it signifies a deeper, more robust EU integration. Currency adoption is often seen as the final and most profound step in economic integration, going far beyond mere trade agreements or free movement of people. It ties a nation's monetary policy, essentially, how its central bank manages money supply, interest rates, inflation, and by extension, its fiscal policy, directly into the heart of the European project. Economically, it expands the Eurozone's footprint directly into southeastern Europe, a region of growing geopolitical and economic significance, acting as a bridge to other markets. This isn't just about currency unification. If we connect this to the bigger picture, it's profoundly about cohesion, control, and influence.
So it strengthens the Eurozone itself.
Yes, it shows the continued vitality and attractiveness of the Eurozone project, even as it faces internal and external challenges. It's a powerful statement that the EU's gravitational pull remains strong, particularly for countries on its periphery seeking greater stability and prosperity.
And it also serves to strengthen the EU's eastern frontier, doesn't it? With ongoing geopolitical tensions in nearby regions, including Russia and the Western Balkans, having a more integrated, economically stable Bulgaria feels incredibly beneficial for the EU's overall economic security and political alignment. It's like shoring up the defenses, both economically and geopolitically, in a historically sensitive region.
That's an excellent analogy, and it's precisely how many in Brussels view this move. Geopolitical stability is an enormous, often understated benefit that comes with deeper integration. A financially stable, economically aligned Bulgaria acts as a robust anchor on the EU's southeastern flank. This region has historically been a crossroads of influence and, at times, instability, marked by complex historical legacies and diverse external interests. By fully integrating Bulgaria into the Eurozone, the EU effectively deepens its own security zone, making the entire bloc more resilient to external pressures and potential fragmentation.
So it's about shared systems, shared interests.
Exactly. It means common economic policy, shared financial systems, and an increased vested interest in maintaining stability in the broader region. This move can also serve as an influential signal to other non-Eurozone EU members in the region, such as Romania, or even aspiring EU members in the Western Balkans like Serbia or Albania. It demonstrates the perceived advantages and potential trajectory of closer integration with the core of Europe, potentially encouraging them to accelerate their own reform processes to meet the stringent criteria for Euro adoption, thereby fostering greater stability and convergence across the entire continent.
So it's a strategic move, but for Bulgaria itself, it seems like there are both significant pressures and immense opportunities. It's certainly not a one-way street of pure, unadulterated benefit, is it?
Absolutely not. It's a complex balancing act. Once Bulgaria is fully within the Eurozone, it will be expected to adhere rigidly to Eurozone rules and standards, which are among the strictest globally. This includes strict budget discipline, which means maintaining government deficits and public debt within prescribed limits set by the Maastricht criteria. For instance, the deficit must generally be below 3% of GDP and public debt below 60% of GDP, which can be tough. Very tough, especially if economic conditions change. It also means increased scrutiny on areas like anti-corruption enforcement, judiciary independence, and transparency, given that these have been long-standing concerns both domestically and from Brussels regarding the rule of law in some newer EU members. Brussels will certainly be watching closely to ensure compliance and robust implementation of these standards, and there are mechanisms like the excessive deficit procedure that can impose penalties for non-compliance. This isn't just about financial numbers, it's about the quality of governance.
And what are the opportunities that balance those pressures? What's the upside for Bulgaria?
Well, on the flip side, the opportunities are indeed substantial and potentially transformative. Full euro adoption can attract significantly more EU funds, which are specifically designed to foster cohesion and development across the bloc, addressing regional disparities. We're talking about major cohesion funds and structural funds aimed at improving infrastructure, human capital, and economic competitiveness.
And foreign investment.
Yes, it will also draw in higher levels of foreign direct investment, FDI, because international businesses will see Bulgaria as an even more secure, predictable, and fully integrated market, part of a much larger single currency area. These inflows can fuel long-term development deals, helping to modernize crucial sectors like infrastructure, think new highways, high-speed rail lines, modernized ports, and expanded digital networks. They can also vastly improve public services such as healthcare and education, which are vital for a modern economy. This raises an important question, though. How will Bulgaria balance these pressures for stricter adherence and accountability with the immense opportunities for economic growth and modernization? We've seen how EU funds have profoundly transformed other new member states, for example, dramatically improving transportation networks in Poland with new expressways and upgraded railways, or significantly upgrading public health facilities in Romania.
Tangible improvement.
Exactly. Tangible improvements in citizens' lives. Bulgaria has the potential for similar transformations, provided it meets the accompanying governance challenges and manages these funds effectively. 4. Public sentiment and trust. Navigating uncertainty and building confidence.
This brings us to a crucial, often overlooked, but deeply human aspect of such a monumental change: public sentiment. Surveys show that Bulgarians are pretty divided on this. Some see it as undeniable progress, a sign of true European belonging and a step towards greater prosperity, but others harbor deep fears, particularly about losing control, both over prices and perhaps even more profoundly over their national identity. This is more than just economics, isn't it?
Oh, it's absolutely a nuanced picture, and those divisions are very real and emotionally charged. There's a strong emotional connection to the lev, the national currency. It has existed in various forms for well over a century, tracing back to the late 19th century, a symbol of Bulgaria's independence and its journey through various historical epochs.
So it's tied up with history and identity.
Deeply. For generations, it has been the tangible symbol of Bulgarian sovereignty, economic independence, and everyday life. So for many, its loss feels like losing a part of the culture, a piece of their national heritage, something intrinsically tied to their identity. Even if the economic logic of adopting the euro is sound and well-reasoned from an analytical standpoint, this psychological impact shouldn't be underestimated. It touches on feelings of national pride, a sense of self-determination, and the comfort of the familiar. It's not just about what you buy with it, but what it represents: continuity, history, and national character. This emotional attachment means that the transition isn't merely an economic calculation for the average person. It's a cultural and historical shift that evokes strong, often conflicting feelings.
And beyond that emotional connection, there's another significant concern, which is a broader mistrust of institutions, often rooted in historical experience. Some Bulgarians worry that Euro adoption, despite its promises of transparency and integration, will primarily benefit a select few politicians, powerful developers, the already well-connected, rather than leading to tangible improvements for the average person. There's a fear that without robust, proper regulation and oversight, corruption might actually rise, exploiting the transition rather than falling. How does the EU, or how does the system, address this specific concern?
That institutional mistrust is a very legitimate and deeply ingrained concern in many post-communist countries. And it's something that policymakers, both in Sofia and Brussels, must address head-on with proactive measures. However, it's critically important to also highlight the counter-argument and the potential for a profoundly positive outcome. If the euro transition is handled incredibly carefully with absolute transparency and critically accompanied by robust, comprehensive public education campaigns, euro adoption could actually help reduce corruption over the long term. What's fascinating here is how the very mechanism feared to enable corruption could, in fact, curb it.
How does that work in practice? It sounds a bit counterintuitive to some.
It does, but think about it. When a country fully integrates into the euro banking systems and its financial oversight structures, and when EU financial tracking mechanisms are fully in place and leveraged, it becomes significantly harder to hide illicit activity. Transactions are more transparent because they are part of a larger, more standardized, and more closely monitored system. Large cash movements, for example, become more difficult to obscure or move across borders undetected when you're operating within the strictures of the Eurozone's financial regulations.
So more oversight, basically.
Yes, and more integrated oversight. Money laundering, for instance, becomes far more challenging when you're operating within a standardized, interconnected, and more closely monitored financial system under the scrutiny of bodies like the European Central Bank, the ECB, and the European Anti-Fraud Office, OLAF. This integration provides tools and oversight that a purely national system sometimes might lack the resources or perhaps the political will to enforce consistently. So, while initial fears are valid and vigilance is paramount, the long-term potential for increased accountability, greater transparency, and reduced illicit financial flows is a powerful argument for the euro. The key, however, lies in how the transition is managed, the strength of the regulatory frameworks implemented, and the level of public trust initiatives to truly mitigate these pervasive fears during this crucial period. It's about proactive governance, not just passive integration. Outro.
So what does this all mean for you, our listener? As we've explored, Bulgaria's momentous move toward the euro is truly a multifaceted event. It's not just a currency switch. It will reshape the economy and society in profound ways, for better and potentially with significant challenges depending on how these complex dynamics play out.
Right. To synthesize the impacts, for ordinary Bulgarians, this transition offers the potential for greater financial stability, maybe easier access to credit from across the EU, and expanded travel and job opportunities within the wider Eurozone. However, it also carries very real risks of rising prices due to euro inflation, the potential for housing to become unaffordable for locals, and the threat of income stagnation if wages don't keep pace with the cost of living. That's a big if. For the real estate market, the euro adoption is likely to drive higher foreign demand, especially for those rural and currently underpriced properties that have long made Bulgaria a hidden gem. Expect prices to rise, and potentially quite rapidly. So for you, the listener, if you've been considering an investment in Bulgarian property, the practical recommendation, based on historical patterns, is probably to act before the euro adoption is finalized, as the window for current, relatively lower pricing may close swiftly. And finally, for the European Union as a whole, this represents a small but strategically meaningful expansion of the Eurozone. It further cements Bulgaria's growing role in southeastern Europe, reinforcing the EU's economic and political footprint in a critical region, strengthening its eastern flank.
And as we wrap up, it's worth considering a final provocative thought. Ultimately, whether the euro proves a blessing or a burden for Bulgaria will largely depend on how this transition is handled. It won't be just about the technicalities of currency conversion, but about fairness, transparency, and a genuine, proactive effort to protect the most vulnerable segments of the population from the inevitable economic shocks and shifts. It's a reminder that even the most well-intentioned economic policies rely heavily on the human element and trust, doesn't it?
Exactly. The success will hinge on ensuring that the benefits of integration are broadly shared, and that the concerns and fears of everyday citizens are not only acknowledged but actively mitigated through wise policy and comprehensive public education. It's a testament to the idea that economic success is deeply intertwined with social equity.
That's all for today's deep dive. We hope you found this comprehensive look into Bulgaria's euro adoption helpful and that it sparked some new insights for you on the complexities of such a monumental change on a nation and its people.